Good evening and welcome to Stories for the Cooped Up Captive and Bored Out of Our Mind. Tonight I'm broadcasting from out back on the hay rack, except it's a lot more comfortable than it was last time. I thought to bring my hammer. There were some stray nails poking me on the back side. Brother-in-law is down in the flat working it up, hoping to get it planted before the rain comes on Tuesday. Unless I miss my guess, my wife sent him a text and asked him to idle it down for the duration of this story. That's kind of the way she is, and it's a perfect segue for this story. Tonight, we're going to talk about truck driving and love. Therefore, you almost have to dedicate this story to my buddy Don Grant. So, here we go. You couldn't exactly call it at first sight. It took me darn near 18 minutes to fall in love with my wife. Between the Tyranina Brewing Company and the Route 73 exit, she was telling me stories about her grandma and tending garden. Now, my wife is gorgeous, accountable, and loyal to the core. I would have proposed to her on the first date, but my buddy Scott Cluess says, "Hick, no matter what, take a good hard look at the mom." Well, I did, and I'm in, with one subtle reservation, and we'll get to that in a bit. So my mother-in-law, Judy Barnes, is probably 5'4" with her hair in curlers. She walks softly, speaks softly, she carries no stick, but if there is to be a last word, it will be hers. She and her husband, Butch, have been married for 50 years. He calls her the boss, with a little glimmer in his eyes. No one has ever pushed back from her holiday table, hungry, heavy-hearted, or lonely. Her left foot is just as comfortable on the pedal of a Singer sewing machine as it is on the clutch of a 2002 Peterbilt hauling freight. She and her husband, Butch, drive truck together, mostly because they do everything together. I've seen them spend a week together in the truck, get home, climb out, get on the four-wheeler, and drive around the neighborhood talking to friends. Early in our courtship, they were hauling a load of cheese from Crystal Farm in Lake Mills, Wisconsin to LA, Los Angeles. Somewhere around St. George's, Utah, Judy started to get a little rumbling in her tummy. By the time they got to the loading docks, it had progressed to a full-blown roar. Thankfully, they had a niece who was a nurse in LA General Hospital. She could get her right in. But Judy waved her off. It was only 2,100 miles back home. She would be just fine. But by the time they got to Barstow, she was doubled over in the passenger seat, and Butch was starting to get a little bit worried. So he got on the phone with my wife, Sheila. In an hour, she was pre-admitted to Las Vegas General Hospital and had a first-class seat on the next nonstop back to Madison. But there were 40,000 pounds of fresh vegetables in that reaper, and they were expected in Madison at Woodman's on Wednesday. They weren't going to drive themselves halfway across the country, and there was not enough caffeine in California to keep Butch awake for another mile. So he put it on the shoulder, and she took a turn. Butch said, "Judith, just give me 150 miles and I'll be good to go." Well, he might as well have been talking to Abraham Lincoln, because 8 hours later he climbed out of the sleeper. They were east of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Well, Butch climbed back in the seat and stayed in it all the way to Madison. He made it in 14 hours. They made the loading dock back at Woodman's in Sun Prairie, and they were met with Sheila and her sister, Debbie, and their brother, Ty. Well, they poured Judy out of that semi into the back seat of their car. Ty got in the truck and finished the load with Butch. The gastroenterologist took one look and ordered an MRI. Judy had diverticulitis, nearly a perforated bowel, and she was septic. It took 3 days on intravenous fluids before she was strong enough for surgery. Post-op, the surgeon met with the family. He said everything went great. It was close. She can go home as soon as she is able to pass gas. Butch looked that poor doctor right in the eye and he said, "Doc, you better make sure you know what you're asking for." He could not have been more serious. Go to any particular Barnes family event, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, At some point in time after dessert, kin folks will come pouring out of the kitchen begging for breath. They'll have the windows and the doors open for a crossbreed. The woman could take Teflon off of a teapot. But it's not just about BTUs, and it's not about cubic feet that she can produce. It is also finesse. She can one cheek, sneak, crop, dust. Her specialty is the walking staccato musical fart. Once on Black Friday, the entire length of the appliance department at the Kohl's store in Johnson Creek, Wisconsin. The beauty of it is she doesn't celebrate. She also doesn't apologize. And why should she? It's chemistry, people. You cannot consume a quinoa salad or a cheeseburger and convert it to meaningful thought and purposeful movement without the obligatory production of methane. Yet, get caught at the wrong time and we are stigmatized. There was a time when people thought that the sneeze was an opportunity for evil spirits to enter the soul. Well, I think it's abundantly clear how it is that they get out. And no one is spared. The great James Corden at the Moth event in Milwaukee once told a story about a first date that was going beautifully until it was fouled by his lactose intolerance. Can you imagine the graduation and commencement speeches that have been soured by one too many cauliflower florets and an overly sensitive microphone? Heck, I'm a veterinarian. I cannot count the number of times I've been in an exam room with a grieving family saying goodbye to their beloved dog, silent but for the sobs. Here I am trying to hit the vein and all the while fight against a chorizo burrito with rice and beans. All I'm asking is that we decommission the fart like post-nasal drip and a runny nose. For God's sakes, people, just give gas a chance. So that's my story. And if all else fails, please keep something moving forward.